Joe is a star web and mobile app developer. He is excited about his new web app project. His client wants him to create a software for the service industry. It will be used to check in visitors and page them when they are ready to be served. Normally, he has to wait for the server side to be ready before he can start developing his app. This includes server setup, database setup. This time, he decided to take a different approach. He logged on to axisAPI and set up a fully configured server in minutes. His server came with the adminer tool, which he used to create a table named visitors. This table has columns to store visitor names, phone numbers, service providers, paging preferences, and some analytical columns. Now that the database is set up, Joe opened the API Builder tool. To create an insert API quickly, he clicked on the wizard icon and selected Insert Record. He selects the visitors table from the drop-down and clicks on Build and Continue. This API captures the business's customer ID and token ID, which they get upon successful login. These variables are used to authenticate the API call. Once authenticated, the API captures the visitor's name, phone number, provider, and paging preferences into variables. This information is submitted to the database using the SQL statement. Next, Joe publishes the API. Now the API is ready to be tested. To test it, he clicks on the Test API button. He is presented with a data entry form. He fills up the form and clicks the Run button. When he clicks on the Run button, the information he entered in the form is sent to the API running on the server. This is the URL invoked to test the API. It can be plugged directly into a browser, web app, or mobile app. Below is the response sent by the API. To check the results for the API call, Joe switches back to the adminer tool and clicks on the Select Data button for the visitors table. The data he entered in the form has successfully reached the database. Building the API was a snap with axisAPI, and now he's ready to start building his web app. He created a data entry form using Bootstrap. Let's have a quick look at the HTML code he wrote for this form. The form starts at line 3. At line 6, Joe accepts the input for the visitor's name. At line 11, the user will input their code number. Lines 16 to 26 are for a drop-down with the list of service providers. And line 31 is the checkbox for the paging preference. Finally, at line 35, Joe built a Submit button. When this button is clicked, a JavaScript function named InsertRecord is called. Now, let's review the code he wrote for the InsertRecord function. From line 2 to line 11, the code pulls the information entered by the user into the JavaScript variables. He uses these variables in line 13 to line 20. Here, he builds the payload that will be passed to the API. At line 22, he makes a jQuery AJAX call and passes the payload to the API. After the API responds in lines 24 to 31, the code checks the return status. If the API was successful, the data entry form is cleared in lines 25 to 27. Let's review what Joe built for his client in a couple of days. He added a login option. This login option also uses APIs provided by axisAPI. His data entry form is functional. It captured visitor information and submitted it to the database. He also built a screen to display the visitor queue in order of check-in. He added an Inform button. Clicking it sends an informational message to the visitor via text. He added a Page button that is used when the business is ready to serve the customer, and a Remove button for when the customer has been served. He also built a Setup page. In this page, the business can set up their name and custom message used to inform or page customers. In his next meeting with his client, Joe didn't just walk in with a mock-up, but an actual working model of the product. This impressed the client and sealed the deal for Joe.